Now it is time for God's kingdom, there for all who long for it, for all who are ready to believe and embrace it. It is time to accept the alternative. Jesus stands motionless on the shore, listening to the call of the seabirds, the rhythm of the waves gently caressing the stones, and watching the men as they fish with nets. Simple men, salt of the earth. And as he watches, he knows that these men are the kind he wants. He goes over to them and says something. They stare for a moment, then nod, and leaving their nets, they go with him. Just like that. They don't need asking twice. And where do they go? Capernaum. Capernaum, a little town on the banks of the blue Sea of Galilee, not far from Nazareth. And in Capernaum, they go to the synagogue, and Jesus starts his preaching there. And people listen. There he heals a man, and the news spreads like wildfire. Within hours, the sick, the diseased, and the mad are coming from dirty hovels and dusty roadside. And that day, as the sun sinks beyond the hills, the whole town seems to be on the move, all coming to Jesus. And so it begins, 3 years of endless giving, caring, and listening and responding. Responding to the hopeless, the helpless, the depraved. And for 3 long, hard years, he gives them all he can give. And then, when he can give no more, he gives them his very self. Today, there are important decisions to make. He needs people to work with, to work on, to nurture and fashion and to teach and train. He needs people who will carry on his work when he leaves them. He needs people who can cope with conflict and hostility. People who are committed. People who will come and share his vision and even share his love. So he slips away, unnoticed for once, and takes the steep path into the hills, scrambling over rocks until he reaches a remote and sheltered spot. And there he prays. As the final light fades, and the sky becomes black with pinpricks of stars, he prays until the black softens into the cold grey and a streak of light stretches along the horizon. And as the sun peeps over the distant hills and the first birds begin to call, he knows. He knows it is time to prepare his team, his disciples. And so they gather, inquisitive, expectant, waiting for him to speak. He has something important to say. That's all they know. They become tense. And as he speaks a name, a head lifts and nods. Then another, feeling proud, excited and honoured, if a little nervous. 12 men exchange glances and wonder what all this will mean. Do they realise their names will enter world history? Names like Peter, James and John and Matthew, Thomas and Judas Iscariot. Do they understand the significance, the implications of the moment? Are they aware of the shadow of prison, of beatings, of martyrdom? and even betrayal. One day, Jesus has an idea. Let's go for a trip to the other side of the lake, he says to them. They push out into the deep water, and soon the crowded shore is far away. Jesus sleeps as they laugh and talk, so they fail to see the storm until it is too late. Suddenly, the sun has gone and the wind is angry and the water swirls. Their boat lurches from side to side and waves start to splash over them. They can't bail out quickly enough. Jesus is woken by a hand, frantically, roughly shaking his shoulder. He is momentarily confused as he emerges from his sleep. But then he hears the fear in their voices, sees the blackness of the sky, feels the cold water, and he is on his feet, shouting at the storm, "Peace, be still." And then suddenly it's over. As quickly as it came, the storm goes and there is calm as the sun shines again. Jesus turns and looks at his men. They stare, silent, mouths gaping, their eyes open wide. "What's your problem?" Jesus says. "Don't you trust me? You didn't think I'd let you drown, did you?" But they're out of their depth. Who is this man? This man who can issue commands to the wind and the waves, and they obey him? Now Jesus returns home, back to familiar streets, familiar faces, back to Nazareth. Old friends and neighbours look up and smile or call out a greeting as he walks past. The shepherd minding his goats and sheep, the woman fetching water from the well, and on the Sabbath, he goes back to the synagogue. This simple place, full of childhood memories, cool with its stone-built walls and pillars. But today, he goes as the teacher, and today he stands to speak. There is a stillness, an expectancy, as he reads from the ancient prophet Isaiah. "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me." And somehow they sense the presence of God and the deep hidden truth in the words, but they are bewildered. This is the lad they've seen grow from a toddler to a youth to a man, the oldest boy in Joseph's family. And for a while they listen. But then the mood changes to resistance, hostility, and their confused ignorance brings rejection. They cannot understand, so they dismiss what he says. Jesus is hurt and saddened. He had wanted to help, but they won't trust him. They won't accept him. So he walks away. But today he sends out his team. He sends them to share his work. He sends them as they are, uncomplicated. They travel light, no heavy suitcase with what shall I wear today, no credit card, no detailed itinerary. Just his team, focused and free for more important things like telling people about repentance and new beginnings, like confronting evil and bringing healing. And so they go wherever they are welcomed. And if they are rejected, they just move on, leaving God to have the final word.